Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Club podcast, where every month we deep dive into a different aspect of cinema. Directors, actors, franchises, or genres, it doesn't matter. It's always fun at the Film Club. I'm Dean.
I'm Boo.
And this month, I got it. I'm getting through it. This month, we're talking about
a new theme.
A new theme, yes. Movies about movies. And this week, we're talking about
the Fablemans.
That's right. This is your month. You picked everything.
Yes,
so
this is my month. We've never done movies about movies. We've done those kind of movies before, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But
Hitchcock is another one.
Hitchcock, yeah. So it's like I love filmmaking and the behind the scenes of it, and to have movies that are all about that, that is my bread and butter right there. So yeah, this entire month is curated by me. These are Boo picks. And we're starting off with a brand new movie that both of us have never seen before.
Yeah, this is the Fablemans. It's Steven Spielberg's swan song movie, even though it's not his swan song.
No, because he's still going.
Yeah, he's still going, but it feels like it, right?
Yeah, this feels like, this would be the last curtain call. It's like I've done all of these films, and this is my coup de grace.
This is the story about me, why I became a filmmaker, all the little things that made me who I am.
If anyone ever had any questions, this is me on the canvas.
But, okay, I think I got this. Okay.
Are you sure?
I think so.
Because this is our second time around.
We're
burning tape today.
With a lot of tape, but I think I got my consensus ideas on it. Is the movie is just kind of okay. It's good, but the first half is really solid, and the last half is not nearly as good.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way, but there's a lot of movies like that where, the opening act through the middle is just really solid storytelling, and then you get towards, the climax of the movie, and it starts to teeter a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's like, I wasn't sure where this movie was going to end, if we were going to, end with Spielberg on, his first day of his first, major motion picture, or his first day on set. So it was interesting to kind of see where we left off in the story.
Yeah, because the movie ends with him essentially getting the last piece of advice he needs to become a great filmmaker.
Or his baptism into Hollywood.
Yeah, that's actually a good way to put it. When he is finally ordained by the god of cinema, then he's able to kind of move on. But it's one of those things where I kind of want to get the opening salvo out, being that I did like the movie. Yeah. I thought it was good. It's just, I felt so underwhelmed by it by the end of the movie. And I wonder if you felt the same way. Did you expect this to be a top 5 Spielberg thing going into it, and it came out as maybe a top 15?
I wasn't too sure. It was a thing where it was just so advertised and it was everywhere that I was kind of I love Spielberg, but the more you put it in my face, the more I'm going to be kind of resistant to watch it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of...
You hate over advertisements in everything.
Not everything, but the more it's out there, it's kind of okay, I'll get to it when I get to it. And, I really liked the movie, but definitely not in the top 5, especially when I was doing the research and seeing that where they left the ending. They kind of left it open for a possibility of another film.
Wait, is there actually thinking of doing a Fablemans 2?
Spielberg said that he's open to.
Wow.
So it'll be interesting to see, where they go with this. Because, his career is still going. Yeah. So it's there's no ending in sight. So it's okay, we have Sammy at CBS, and then where do we go next? Where do they stop?
I would be very annoyed if they made a
Part
Fablemans 2. Yeah, because here's the thing. Fablemans works as a normal movie about a person, and the conceit is that we all know he's Spielberg. This is sold on Spielberg's autobiography, but you can kind of put yourself into it because, it's not Steven Spielberg, it's Sammy Fableman, and it's a little easier for you to adapt and relate to it. But if the sequel starts with Sammy Fableman, you're going to be making this movie called Jaws, and then E.T., and then all these other things. Once it'll start dropping the veil, and I think that would be a big failure for it as a sequel.
Or, you know, opening crawl and then 5 years later or 10 years later. And it's like, well, how are we going to do, you know, some of these big films? Are we going into the archives and we're going to pull out, you know, actual footage? Are they going to recreate some of these iconic movies like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Jurassic Park, Schindler's List? It's like, how are you going to do all these major films as Sammy, you know, years later?
Yeah, and it'd be a whole thing where, look, I didn't know they were going to try and make a sequel out of this. If they ever do, I mean, I'd probably see it, honestly, because it's
There's no
Spielberg.
guarantee, but it was one of those things where it's kind of like, I'm not closing the door on it, but it's like, that's going to take a lot of time and a lot of work to get all of that to work, because these movies are so big and so renowned and so loved by people.
But we should probably tell people what this movie's about.
We probably should.
Yeah, we kind of danced around it a little bit, but it is Steven Spielberg's essential autobiography.
Mm-hmm.
Names have been changed to protect the innocent,
Of course.
But yeah, like I've seen a lot of interviews with him talking about growing up, and this is kind of his beat for beat what's going on, but here's the general idea of what the movie's about on the back of the box. Dun-dun.
Oh, okay. I was just waiting for you to start reading the back of the box.
You know, just build up. Right?
Okay.
Sammy Fableman falls in love with the movies when he is a small child after seeing the greatest show on earth, and we follow him as he grows up and develops his filmmaking eye as the filmmaking eye. I'm gonna get through this. God damn it!
Difficult box, huh?
It's a very difficult box. Develops his filmmaking eye as the marriage of his free-spirited mother and technical-minded father falls apart. Things converge when Sammy edits together a home movie as a gift for his mother and discovers his mother's emotional affair with his father's best friend, which eventually leads to his parents' divorce when he graduates high school. The film culminates with Sam splitting his time between his parents and pursuing his dream of being a filmmaker, leading to him getting a job at CBS and his first step to that dream and a chance meeting with his idol and the greatest director to have ever lived. So that last sentence of him getting CBS, that's like the last, 10 minutes of the movie, 5 minutes of the movie?
5 minutes.
Yeah, and most of that is taken up by one of the best walk-on cameos of the year.
I mean, I was so surprised. I mean, wasn't expecting it.
There's 2 insanely good, like, one-scene cameos. Yeah. I think it's the ending one. We'll get to that in a second. And the first one is, I believe his name is Judd Hirsch?
Uncle Boris.
Uncle Boris, which, oh my god, so good.
Also, you know, from the advertising of the movie and, you know, it being at the Oscars, I thought Uncle Boris was in the story a lot longer than we had him.
I think he had a supporting actor nod.
He did. He was nominated.
And it's a thing where you're like, he steals the movie the moment he shows up, and it's such a big and bombastic performance, and you're like, yeah, you are like the guy for this whole like 10 minutes of the movie. But that is kind of the tragedy of the movie. It was nominated for 7 Oscars and won 0.
Yeah, didn't win any Oscars. It was also his 13th Best Picture nomination. Thank you.
Because it's Steven Spielberg, and he probably has a record at this point.
Yeah, I think he's tied with somebody else.
John Ford?
No, William Wyler?
Oh, yeah, William Wyler's good.
Yeah, so it was a thing where it's like, really? 13? Yeah, he's not stopping at 13. He's going to keep going, you know, maybe 20, 30.
Well, this is the interesting thing, and let's just get this out of the way. You know, Steven Spielberg. Thoughts on Steven Spielberg?
I love Steven Spielberg. He's one of my top 3 favorite directors.
See, I think, honestly, if I had to line up the pantheon of the quintessential American directors, he's on there somewhere, honestly, because, what is it, from 1970-something? Basically when Jaws comes out. From Jaws to...
Duel.
Or Duel. I say Jaws because that's when he basically established himself as the king of blockbuster Hollywood popcorn flicks,
and
right?
First major motion picture.
Yeah, his first major motion picture. From Jaws pretty much to now, Fablemans.
Yeah. There
has never been a lull in his career. All of his, even his movies that didn't do well, never damaged his career reputation. He's almost like Martin Scorsese in that way, where from their first movie all the way up to now, they've always been able to just connect with the audience.
Absolutely.
And whereas Scorsese can act in like a very like kind of artistic way, you know, he's trying to like be experimental. Spielberg goes right for your heart.
Yes.
And he really gets that like Americana, like nostalgia, schmaltz, like he gets that. Mm-hmm. But The Fablemans is him kind of trying to lift the veil of being like, guys, I know all my movies are about, you know, divorced parents and aliens and sharks and, you know, me being Jewish, but here's me behind the mask. It is exactly what I've been telling you through my movies for the last 40 years.
Yeah, and I mean, you kind of see that with, you know, marriages not being, you know, working in his movies. It's kind of like a cathartic thing for him where he's trying to heal the past. And it's interesting to see, you know, the familial struggles that they grew up with his mom being in love with her husband's best friend. Mm-hmm. And it makes you think, you know, well, how far did this go back? Was it ever a thing where before she was married, you know, pick me, you know, maybe I chose the wrong person. But it's interesting to see, you know, years later, they all kind of, you know, came around and they were all friends, and her and the ex-husband were able to become friends again. So it kind of healed.
Yeah,
which you don't usually get.
Yeah, it is a really unique circumstance in that way of like the movie basically plays out as like, you know, again, his dad and his mom, they really do love each other, mm-hmm. but she is very much a person that just can't deal with her husband, with mm-hmm. with the father figure. I really should have written down everyone's names. It's Paul Dano and Michelle Williams are the actors. So like Michelle Williams' character, because they're not one for one his parents, but they're pretty much his parents.
Yeah.
So Michelle Williams' character, she loves Paul Dano's character, but Paul Dano's character, the father in this, I think his name's Bert, is the definition of emotionally unavailable. Or he's that's not the right way. He's too smart for his own good. He can't talk to people without over-explaining how everything works. It shows in the first like part of the movie.
He can't turn it off.
He can't turn it off, exactly. And the opening of the movie when Sammy's like, what's a movie? And he's like,
yeah.
And he's like, oh, it's these little lights and a big lamp, and this machine turns things at 24 frames a second, and the persistence of image. And his mom is like, it is a dream mm-hmm. that you can't wake up from. It's just a beautiful dream. And that lays out the dichotomy of these two people. He is like, it's a machine and you can figure it out. And she's like, it is something wonderful that you can't imagine.
You have a type A brain married to a type B brain, where it's just, you know, very, very technical. And then you have the very artistic side. And it's just, it works, but they are just so extreme in the things that they're into that it just kind of clashes with each other instead of just kind of melding.
Yeah, and she finds comfort in Seth Rogen's character, the best friend, mm-hmm. which also, kudos to Seth Rogen, like showing up and not being distracting, because he kind of is selling this.
Yeah, I was very surprised. I was like, whoa, this is not, you know, your typical Seth Rogen, but he's also evolved as an actor over the years.
Yeah, and the other thing is he's being directed by Steven Spielberg, and I saw an interview, and Steven Spielberg had Seth Rogen like tone it down a lot and like really play just like a normal charming guy, which he is essentially really good at playing a normal charming guy. And
also his parents are Mitzi and Bert.
Yes.
And Seth Rogen is Benny.
And but that's like the crux of the entire movie, really, is the story of these two people who come together and they create Sammy, who is Steven Spielberg, really interested in the arts, but his real skill is solving the problems of creating films, mm-hmm. you know? How do you make the bullet hole show up in your movie? I poked holes in the celluloid. How do I make explosions when it looks like somebody's being, you know, a grenade goes off? You put the wood in the dirt mm-hmm. and it looks like, you know, it explodes when you step on it. How do I, like, figure this out or that out? He is his father's technical mind applied to the artistic endeavors his mother would enjoy.
Mm-hmm. He's this perfect combination.
And it's very interesting because he's their perfect combination, but the parents like don't work, and he has a lot of like resentment to that. And like his mother, I I read that his mother probably had some sort of like manic depressive personality because, again, Michelle Williams' performance is fantastic.
Yes, it is.
And she goes from
so is Paul Dano. I mean, my God, Paul Dano.
Paul Dano on the lowest of keys is the MVP of this movie.
Yeah.
Because Paul Dano in this movie could easily play the disapproving father of, why are you interested in them movies? Why can't you just, learn things, learn something useful with your life, apply yourself to something that'll matter. But he's very much like, I mean, I wish you would like take an interest in algebra or math, but it's your hobby. I get it. You love doing it. Maybe you'll grow out of it. He's playing a normal ass father.
Yeah.
Not like 80s movie father.
Yeah, where they're just kind of like, whatever, cool, as long as, you're safe. Don't bug me with it. $5, all right, here's the $5, take it. He's very involved. And you see that throughout the movie, even though he does disapprove with Sammy's, desire to be a filmmaker. And I think it's more, he's just afraid for him to really kind of divulge into the art.
I mean, that comes into the whole fact when Boris shows up. Uncle Boris. And
love
it's like,
Uncle Boris.
Uncle Boris is great. But he shows up and it's like, oh, this is what happens to the artists who kind of fail. He's this kind of vagabond who doesn't really have any roots. He loves the art of the show, but he has nothing to really show for it. And I think that's the fear that Bert has, Paul Dano's character has.
But then you see the opposite side of the coin where, Bert's very successful and by the end, gets a sweet house.
Yeah.
And he's, just this intelligence that he's able to, rack up who knows how much in the bank. But, the flip side with like Uncle Boris, he's lived this adventure of a life. And it's like, yeah, I might be living out of a suitcase, but I've got so many stories and, it's been worth it. I don't care if I don't have, a home to call my own. I just go on to my next journey right after.
It's the sad tragedy of it all because it is this whole thing that Sammy, our lead, has to deal with, is that I feel is never really confronted, because Sammy is all in on movie making. He only falls away from it when he, sees the truth through the lens, when he sees the parent affair kind of thing.
That's heartbreaking.
It is really sad, but that's the thing. That's the only time he puts the camera down. It's never a thing where he's like, I don't know if I can actually make this work. I don't know if I could be this. He always has that heart of an artist, and it never feels like his dad has anything to stand on other than being an obstacle. But that's a whole thing. But Michelle Williams playing Mitzi, thank you. Michelle Williams, she's doing a great job here. I think she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress.
I believe so.
Yeah, which is weird because she's like the lead in this. Like, she's really that, like, the emotional barometer for the movie.
Yeah.
Like, we see everything through Sammy's eyes, but she's really driving the point, driving the narrative, driving everything. And okay, did Mitzi grate on you after a while?
A little bit, but I think it just goes with, she is the eccentric. She's the artist. It's just, at first it's kind of cute, and after a while, it gets to be a bit much, but you're seeing that she's kind of going through this crisis where she's stuck between these two people. She's got her family, but then, she's got the artistic side too. So it's like, okay, let's adopt a monkey when we come back to California. And it's like, well, who has a monkey as a pet?
She's the definition of a person that is great in 5-minute intervals. I would go insane if I had to like spend hours and hours with her in a social environment.
Yeah, I guess.
Once she starts getting the monkey out and it starts like clawing at your hair, then we'll talk.
Well, when it's throwing the light bulbs are very expensive to be, just throwing them at a wall. But yeah, but I also think, it goes to just, the stress and not being happy in her relationship. So it's manifesting in different ways where it's like, let's adopt this pet. Let's do this. Let's do that. And, you have Bert that's kind of like, you don't even play music anymore. You don't cook. You're not acting like yourself. And she's just in the midst of this crisis where, it's going to be one thing that sets her off. And it could be absolutely anything.
Yeah, and that is like the crux of the whole story, is the parental relationship. And what I thought was going to be the main drive of the movie is Sammy learning about filmmaking, him kind of like what inspires him to make movies, the movies that he like, him learning his craft at a young age and kind of building upon it, which is like done in a montage.
Yeah, it's very fast. We never really get to see, oh, this is how I came up with the idea. I mean, where we really get the focus is when he sees his first movie.
Yes.
And it's The Greatest Show on Earth by Cecil B. DeMille. And, not coincidentally, but coincidentally, Fablemans was released on the 70th anniversary of Greatest Show on Earth. So it was kind of cool to see this, full circle moment for him, where it's like this one movie started my career and inspired this, art form that I live for, breathe for. And let's do my life story, have it, come out the same year as this movie. But that's where we really see where he's like, he gets his train set, and then it's, I gotta see it crash. And there's no, explanation. I gotta see it crash.
Well, I love that because, again, like, I think we touched on it earlier, that that opening scene lays out the whole movie, where his dad's explaining it technically, his mom is explaining it, like, artistically. But how he reacts to it is perfect and makes total sense to me, because he sees it and it scares him, and he doesn't, and he wants to figure out how it happened so he doesn't have to be scared of it anymore.
Yeah.
And they get the train set, they build it, and he's crashing it, and then his mother figures out that's what's going on. That's why he's crashing his train set. He wants to figure it out. Because
his dad just sees, he's being a destructive little boy. That's, I got him this really nice train car, and he just wants to,
smash it.
He just wants to smash it. And his mom's like, no, he's got a vision. He's got to see it. And if we record it, you could watch it over and over again.
And you don't have to break your train set.
Exactly.
And I think that's like perfect, right? Because they give him the camera, he shoots it, and that is like the first steps where it's like, oh, there you go. This is like the superhero origin story of one Steven Q. Spielberg. The Q stands for the Q stands for excellence. Or schmaltz, depending on who you talk to. But it's interesting because we stick with the young kid story for a while.
Yeah, it's a good chunk of the beginning of the movie. And I mean, it makes sense because, this is, his first movie, and, he's finally doing something to kind of, match that experience that he had. And then we see the drive and the cute, let's make movies with my sisters, where they're mummies or they're at the dentist.
Yeah.
And it's just, you see the creativity in this young boy. And it's like, this isn't just a young boy playing. This is, somebody that's on their path.
Yeah, he's figuring it out. And we get the entire thing, like, the entire thing of like, oh, is it going to be just him, like, learning his craft and building it up? And all that is done in this montage where it's, the dentist and the mummy. And this is going on until we get to him basically having to move.
Yeah, when they move to Arizona.
Yeah, because the whole first part is in New Jersey, then it moves them to Arizona because Bert gets a new job doing science stuff. He's a computer engineer, but this is back when computers were in rooms.
Yeah.
And he goes to Phoenix, and then we cut right into teenage Sammy, right?
Yeah, he's with like the Boy Scouts or Eagle Scouts.
Yeah, he's a Boy Scout, and this is another thing that's kind of true to the Spielberg canon, which, of course, Steven Spielberg was a Boy Scout.
Of course he was.
Come on, guys. Let's be honest here. Pure Americana. And it's him still exploring, making movies. And it's him kind of making his first real, like, we would call them like student films or whatever. But he's making like a real movie. He gets all of his boys together. It's the whole Eagle Scout troop. He makes a movie about, a stagecoach robbery, right? Which gets homaged. It ties into the end. We'll get to that.
Yes, it ties into the end.
We'll get to that.
But you've got, Bert, well, he still thinks that this is a hobby, and this is a, kind of a thorn in the side of the movie where it's just, his dad doesn't see his vision. It's just kind of like, don't follow the arts, do something that's, actually a job. But there's Bert, helping with the stagecoach, fanning in dust. So it's like, he's not 100% on board with this, but he's there for his kid.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that makes the Bert character work so well, is that he is a good father.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, he might not be a good husband, but he's a good father. And I think that's what Spielberg's trying to impart on the audience, because once they get the divorce at near the end of the movie, like that, the whole crux of it, and this is what Spielberg's the family secret that he's been hiding his whole life, that that's what this movie is revealing, is that his dad, when they got the divorce, he took the blame for it.
He did.
He was like, yeah, I'm why we're getting the divorce. He's like, I want to keep working here. Your mom wants to move back to Arizona. We can't deal with that, so we're getting a divorce. And he was acting like the bad guy just so his kids could, still have that kind of connection with their mother. Oh, she's not leaving us. She's, moving back to Arizona. It'll be fine. And Spielberg basically hid that for his entire life, because he knew when he was 13 or 14, and that was a thing him and his mom would talk about, and he was the only kid privy to this for however long.
And actual, Spielberg lore, he didn't talk to his dad for 15 years because he assumed his dad was, the reason for this divorce, and he was kind of just like, I don't agree with this. And it wasn't until later he found out, no, dad took the blame so that mom could be, basically the good guy.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of that goes to his dad's character, where it's like, no, he is a genuinely good guy. It's just he can't shut off the shop talk.
Yeah, and it's not people might be thinking, for those who haven't seen the movie, that when we're like, oh, he has this very weird way of talking to people, he has trouble connecting. That's not really it. What it is there's a scene really early in the movie. I think it's during the Hanukkah stuff, when he's getting the
train cars.
The train cars. And it's Bert and Benny. And Bert is explaining a transistor thing, and he's talking about, well, this charge goes in, and it has this specific wavelength, and when it connects to the transistor, it's going to take that and lead it down these copper wiring, and that's going to connect to the circuit. And when it connects to that circuit, it's going to then take all those electrical impulses, set all the data, and then transport that out into the screen. And Benny then says, look, kids, it's like air in a balloon. You put the air, the balloon expands, and when it gets high enough, you tie it off, and then it floats. And that floating is the data. And then Mitzi says, oh, Bert, I love your brain, especially when Benny can tell me what's in it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Bert cannot just talk normal to people. He is he's too smart for his own good.
Yeah.
And that's Mitzi's problem. Mitzi feels like she is with somebody who is so kind of beyond her intellectually and all these other things, that she can't connect with him really.
It's intimidating.
Yeah, but she can connect with Benny, because again, Benny can communicate with her.
Yeah, because Benny's in the same field as Bert. They work together, but it's a thing where he knows how to shut it off, and he could also kind of downplay it too. And Bert really can't do that, because that's how Bert's brain operates.
And the whole Benny and Mitzi relationship is kind of, it's weird, okay? Because, again, he's like Uncle Benny, family friend, been around forever.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this is a guy in the, mid-60s who's lives by himself. Is he one of those confirmed bachelor kind of things? Is that what Bert assumes kind of deal? Or is it when there's the whole, emotional affair? Because I think even Mitzi says there was never anything physical.
Yeah, I kind of like that scene where, she goes off, she's pissed off, and she's talking to Sammy. And she goes, I know your brain's probably running around thinking that, I've done the worst of the worst, and I haven't. And it's just kind of an emotional affair is just as bad as a physical affair. So it's there's really no coming back from that, but it's just, when there's someone else in the picture, it's obviously go off with the other person, because, if you wanted the first person, there wouldn't even be an inkling of that second person in your
sphere.
In your sphere, no.
It's one of those things where the movie, once it gets to the Phoenix portion, that's where a lot of the conflict kicks in for the Mitzi Bert relationship, because she's like, you got to take Benny along. We can't go without Benny.
You can't just leave him behind.
yeah, like he's your best friend. He's Uncle Benny. The kids love him. Like, what? You know, like you get, and he's like, I can't do that. You know, like I'm just going to get hired there. I don't have the kind of pull to hire people. And she's like, you're the manager. You hire people. Hire Benny. And Benny goes along with him to Phoenix.
Yeah.
And at that point, I don't know if even Mitzi knows why she's doing it. I think she's honestly like, well, he's part of the family. Like, we can't leave him. That's like leaving the family dog. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, I think that's how it is, too. I mean, you know, there's probably like a small inkling, but it was just kind of, you know, he is so attached to our family that we can't leave him behind. And then, you know, it just progresses and, you know, it becomes even more of a relationship.
Yeah, and it starts getting to a very dangerous point.
Yeah.
Okay, dangerous point maybe not be the right word. You know, no one's getting shot or nothing. But it is a thing where it gets to a very, you know, emotionally volatile point.
Yeah, because you think, you know, if Benny hadn't gone out, could they have resolved things and, you know, kind of worked at it? Or, I mean, not him because he's not really aware of what's going on.
Yeah, I feel like Bert's in the dark for a lot of the movie.
But it's like, you know, Bert, you're there. You got to see, you know, some of these signs.
The thing where it's like she really goes off and talks to Benny a lot when they're around. You know, they're friendly. They're really cool to each other. But it is kind of weird. It does feel like Bert is always like totally unaware of it. Like, I have no inkling. Oh yeah, you know, Uncle Benny comes over. Yeah, he's my best friend. Yeah, him and my wife get along fine. But it's like they get along like really, really well.
But did I tell you I came up with this thing to, you know, simplify this and get this going? And it's just like
it is very odd, right? Like I do feel like they're simplifying things for the sake of, you know, the movie, right? I can't imagine in real life somebody wouldn't pick up on that.
Oh no, I mean that's how, you know, Bert's brain operates, where it's like, you know, okay, cool, Benny's here. Let me tell Benny of this idea that I have. And it's just, you know, I came up with this idea and this will simplify this and, you know, the math and the this and the this and the that. And it's like he's so focused on his career and these things that he's coming up in his head because he's a genius, basically.
Yeah, the movie presents him as such.
So it's, you know, it's kind of interesting to see that's how his brain operates instead of kind of noticing the small little details that are happening around him. And that's when we get that scene where Sammy's making the movie about the camping trip.
Yes.
And he starts to see these little things that are happening in the background of all the frames. And you see he's losing his innocence every time he sees, you know, the two of them are off together. And then especially when they start holding hands and they're walking in the woods together. And you just kind of see he's dying inside a little bit.
Yeah, that is one of the more powerful scenes of the movie. Because it is that moment where Sammy, I think I mentioned it, he sees the truth in the camera and the truth hurts him, right?
Yeah.
And as he's trying to build this together and he figures out what's going on, and it is like the power of editing, right? You know, as he's building this video or this movie to show his mom to cheer her up because I think his grandmother just died.
Yes.
And trying to cheer her up. And then when he gets it together, he's like, I can't put this in the movie because this isn't what people want to see.
And he cuts it and puts it on its own reel.
And then when his mom is asking, why are you so mad at me? Why are you being a little shit?
Yeah, and I mean, Sammy, you know, totally takes this the way that, you know, a teenager, preteen child should take this, where you start to see that, you know, there's something wrong. Your parent is doing something wrong. And there's not really much that I can do. So, you know, acting out and ignoring you, you know, giving you the silent treatment.
Being a shitty teenager. But it's also, you know, this is catastrophic news that I have. And I can't tell anyone else in the family because the family will implode. Yeah.
And it's just, it leads to that boiling point where the both of them just kind of go off on each other.
And it also leads to one of the best scenes in the movie.
Yeah.
The Michelle Williams, like, Oscar bait clip, like, straight up, where she's like, I'm so sorry. Just please tell me what I did wrong. Please don't be mad at me. And Sammy, wordlessly, closes his bedroom door, leads his mom into the closet where he has his projector set up, lines the reel up, and plays it.
Yeah.
And leaves her in there by herself. And she watches the movie.
And he breaks down on the bed.
Oh, and he cries. And then when she bursts out after the movie's over, she's in tears, yanks the projectors, like, power off, and she's, like, crying, and they have the whole breakdown and all this stuff. In that moment, we realize that she didn't know she was having these feelings for Benny.
Mm-hmm.
And it ruins her because now she's like, now that I see it, I can't unsee it.
You can't avoid it.
You're right. And that's the thing that hurt Sammy so much. Sammy saw it, and now he can't unsee it. And now he sees his mother as somebody completely different than before. And when he shows Mitzi that, now she is also affected by it. And now they both know that we know the marriage is a ticking clock.
It is. But I love that with, all that, that gunpowder that we have, waiting for this marriage to explode, that Sammy and his mother still have a relationship.
Yes.
Because, with a lot of relationships, if a child found this out, they might just cut it off with that parent and be like, you know what? You've, committed this cardinal sin. I can't.
Sammy tried that. That's what led to them having this whole blow up and yelling at each other, and that didn't work.
It didn't work, but, it's also Mitzi, loves her children. So it's a thing, just like when she hits him on the back, right before we see, the scene where he reveals why he's so angry at her and not talking to her. As soon as she connects, she breaks into tears, and you could see it in her eyes that she feels so sorry, so guilty. And it's like, we've all been, hit by our parents, we can all in some retrospect kind of, connect with that scene. But it's just, the level of Michelle Williams, being able to feel like, she hit her kid, but immediately she regretted it.
Yeah.
You don't see it like, I'll do it again. Not that kind of, behavior, but it's just like, my God.
It wasn't, just this is to let you know who's the parent in this relationship. No. It was, you called me out of my shit, and I don't know how to react to this.
It's like, I've been at my boiling point. I finally snapped, and I immediately regret it. And it's just, I love that he's able to explain to her why he's being the way that he's being without saying a single word.
The power of cinema.
Cinema.
And then the movie starts taking kind of a downhill once they move to California, and that's kind of where this happens.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think that once we get to California, because I was excited. I'm like, we're going to California. We're going to see when he's, sneaking onto the lot at Universal and walking around. I'm like, we're finally getting that. We've heard that on the tour so many times. And we don't get it.
Well, yeah, because he moves into, like, Northern California, and it's, like, a whole thing where he's, like... That is the trick that I think a lot of Hollywood plays on people, is that, oh, California is just like, it's all Hollywood. Like, you move to California, it's all picture business.
It's a very small city.
It's Hollywood, and then the rest of California is a different world. Like, we live like less than an hour away from Hollywood, maybe.
It's mostly traffic.
Yeah, whatever. It's we're like an hour, less than an hour. We might as well live in a different country.
Yeah,
honestly.
I mean, realistically, when I do all our planning for events, our destination to Hollywood is about 35 minutes.
Yeah, and that's like the thing, and I think that's the point that Spielberg's making here is like, yeah, I went to California. I didn't get anywhere near the movies. What are you talking about? I grew up in fucking Modesto.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't go to like, a Hollywood high school like, a lot of actors. I don't know about too many directors, but you hear about some of these actors, oh yeah, I went to Hollywood high school. I was down the street from, the Chinese theater, the Egyptian theater. It's like, no, he went to Northern California, and then he was bullied because he's Jewish. It's like, what?
Boo, this is like 1962, all right? Like, let's be honest here. Boo, the civil rights movement didn't even happen yet, all right?
I mean, that little shit that was bullying him, I wanted to go through the screen and just beat the crap out of him. Like, String Bean, I will snap you in half.
See, this is another thing where why I feel this section of the movie feels the weakest is because it feels the most movie to me. Because he gets... Okay, I'll explain.
I mean, I'm not laughing at that. It's just, we also got to talk about Jesus.
Oh, yes, that's why. Okay.
Yeah.
So the third section of the movie, because the movie's basically split up into three little sections. Jersey, Phoenix, and California. Jersey is him falling in love with movies. Phoenix is him learning how to make movies. Mm-hmm. And California is him kind of reconciling his feelings about movies, right?
Because he's not making movies.
Yeah, because, the whole camping trip fiasco, him being like, I can't pick up a camera again. I saw too much when I looked through the lens, and now it haunts me.
Yeah.
California is him kind trying to learn how to harness that and reconnect with it and falling back in love with it.
It's mostly Mitzi. Mitzi wants him to get behind the camera, and his dad's like, well, he's kind of falling out of the hobby. Just let him, let him find something else. And Mitzi's like, you have a gift. A gift, yes. I was going to say a passion. No, he is a gift. And it's like, you can't let go of that. And it's like, without his mother driving him, we might not have Spielberg.
It does feel like a whole thing where he's like, curse my inevitable talents. Cinema has cursed me with this. Why, God? And it feels like that, honestly.
Leading into one of the scenes in, this third part, when he's dealing with one of his bullies from the school, he tells him, that's not me. I pick up what the camera shows.
We're going to get to that.
We will. But
because that's the one standout great part of this section. But
that's, kind of been his thing where it's just, I pick up what the camera shows me.
Yes. That we're going to get to that because that's the money shot of this whole section. But leading up to that, he gets to California. He has the one anti-Semitic bully that is a straight up psychopath.
He is. And then
straight up crazy person.
I don't know how this little racist shrimp, has these big jocks that kind of, this is funny. Okay, let's do this.
Again, it's the thing where it's the cruelty of teenage boys, right? Like you will pick on anybody because of many, many reasons, honestly. But this section feels the most movie to me because it feels the most like constructed. This feels like an 80s like teen thing.
Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Because
Sammy is like this kind of meek person for most of the movie,
quiet, but
introspective kind of kid,
but genius.
Yeah, but he's a quiet kid, and it gets to this part, and it's like, oh, he's gonna get bullied by the literal walking like Aryan and his shrimpy like Nazi friend, and he's going to like, oh, I gotta get through school. Oh man, and then he falls in love with the queen of Jesus freaks. That feels like this is a John Hughes movie. This,
I thought it was hilarious when we get to her room and she's got the shrine. She's got pictures of Jesus on the wall, and I didn't recognize some of the other actors, but
it's like Rock Hudson, James Dean, things like that.
Yeah, not exactly, but those kind of headshots, like in Grease.
Yeah, the heartthrobs, the 60s heartthrobs.
The heartthrobs, and it's this wall, and Sammy's kind of like, oh man, you really are kind of crazy, and then the camera pans around, and we see.
Okay. At this moment, this is the moment where I was like, okay, fuck you, movie. Fuck you, movie. There's no goddamn way this is gonna fly.
I mean,
it is this. A fucking church would swoon at the sight of this crucifix on her wall.
I mean, it's huge. I mean, it's something that you would find obviously in a prop house. I don't know how she would have found this on her own.
It is straight up 5 feet tall with Jesus up there looking like a slice of cake, and it is around it this heart made of fucking Christmas lights. And she's like, I'm gonna go take this nice Jewish boy into my room so I might be able to get him to believe in Jesus. And then boink, because Jesus was a Jew.
Yeah,
she's trying to take a walk on the wild side.
That whole scene was just like, what is happening?
Tonal shift. Huge tonal shift of the fucking movie.
Yeah, because I mean, most of the movie is this inspirational journey with heartbreak, because that's basically what childhood is. You don't understand what's going around because your parents are very much people, but you see them as just your parents.
The core of the movie is a kid growing up and learning his parents are people too.
Yes.
That is the core of the movie. It is him being like, oh, I love movies and capturing things with the camera. And as he grows up, as he's viewing through the camera and developing these cinematic skills of observation, he observes his parents and realizes that they are people too. They are not characters on a screen. They are real human beings. They are playing the parts of my parents, but they are real people underneath it.
Yeah.
But this is a John Hughes sex comedy. This is 16 Candles shit here.
Yeah, this was a weird shift. I know that Spielberg has said in interviews that, a lot of what this movie is fact.
It's really close to his real life.
Yeah, and that was something that Seth Rogen had also said in an interview where, he would ask, Spielberg on set, he was like, hey, this that's happening right now in the scene, is this true? And he'd be like, yeah, this actually happened. And, there was a lot of days where Spielberg would be crying on set because you're reliving these things that, that live in your head. But to see it played out is like, oh my God, I'm reliving the past again.
But this here does feel like, okay, Steven, like, let's be real here, honestly.
Like, I want to hear the story about this. Like, is this true? Did this really happen?
It is so ridiculous. It is either this is exactly how it happened, or I made it up. There's no in between.
Or it's just amplified.
I cannot fathom this as like, oh, well, she was kind of religious, but, that it wasn't like a big thing. No, this has to be, oh no, like that 5-foot cross, we toned it down. It was 7'2", and it took up the whole wall, and we toned it down. It is either that, or I just made it up. We needed like a good plot in the third act to be funny and lighten the mood until we get to the emotional endpoint. That has to be it. I swear. That's why
it'd be interesting to see, if that's fact or fiction.
But we both agree that the high school section is like the weakest part because it drives us right away from the narrative we followed up to this point.
Yeah. And then, without the high school scene, we wouldn't have the scene where he records Ditch Day, or where he films Ditch Day.
Where he falls back in love with cinema and learns that I have this gift inside of me. Why, God? I have the power of cinema at my hands.
And it's, really happening at the dinner table. Grandma's there, the whole family, the girlfriend is there, and Mitzi's just like, you should do this, you should do this. And his dad's like, he doesn't have to do this if he doesn't want to. And then the girlfriend tells him, well, my dad owns an Air something.
An Ariflex? Ariflex 60mm camera? Oh, with the motor? Oh, and you got the shoulder mount too? Also, when she busted out that camera, I used that same camera when I was in college.
I remember.
And I was like eyeballing it. I'm like, okay, I know this camera. I know how much time you got in that fucking reel. Do you have enough rolls for this? But yeah.
But it was a thing where, he was,
took me aback.
Yeah, I figured. But it was this thing where, he's trying to talk it down. The family's excited. Everyone's, going off on their own tangents. And Mitzi's kind of like, we'll pay for whatever film you need. Whatever you need to get this done, we'll do it. And he's just kind of like, you've painted me into a corner because the girlfriend is giving me the camera for free to use for the day and all the accessories. Mom and Dad are going to pay for the film and whatever I need to splice it and put it together. I have to do it.
And it works, and it's one of those things where when they bring up the camera, he goes off with all the tech specs, whatever, like I just did, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, yeah, even if you don't want to make movies anymore because you've experienced something that
that devastated you.
Yeah, he's like, movies have wronged me by showing me the reality of my parents' relationship, and I don't want to go back, but it is so ingrained into him that God damn it, I can't leave that well for too long, But
do you want to know something interesting, with actual Spielberg and where the movie differs?
Shoot.
So he gives up filmmaking because of the tragedy of, the fall of his parents' relationship. And in real life, it wasn't that made him stop making movies at that age.
Oh, really?
He saw Lawrence of Arabia.
I
freaked out and was like, nothing could ever beat this movie. I quit. I give up my passion, my love for film.
I have heard this story before in Spielberg interviews, and it is like, okay, that is so relatable on an artistic filmmaker level, right? And obviously they're doing this because he's like, this is what the movie's about. It's about my parents and all this other stuff. And in the other's movie, where, oh, this is the story about him and him growing up and learning about movies and why he loves movies and like all the movies that inspired him. That would have been in there.
Yeah.
Because, like, I don't know if anybody has seen Lawrence of Arabia recently. It is a goddamn masterpiece.
Oh my God, I love that movie.
Top 10 greatest films ever made.
Top 10 greatest scores ever composed.
Like, some of the greatest performances ever. Like, Omar Sharif is so good. Like, Allen Guinness is so good. Fucking Peter O'Toole, like, my God. It is one of those things where it's like, yeah, okay, if I'm like, fucking 15 and I'm like, I'm gonna make pictures. I'm gonna make some of the greatest movies of all time. Watch Lawrence of Arabia, like, yeah, nope, wrap it up, boys. We can't top that. No, it's over. Yeah, Put it away.
I had something similar. When I was in school doing, my stuff for my photography, once I got towards the end of my portraits semester, I, had been building up, and I finally came up with this concept idea. I was able to shoot it, achieve it, and that was, I think, part of my final. And after I got it and created it, and I was like, oh my God, there it is. After that, I'm like, I can't create anything else. Nothing will compare ever to this image that I created. And it took a while to get me to, get back behind the camera. I mean, I had another semester, so obviously I had to pick up behind the camera. But it was just, it was just kind of like, my soul broke. I was like, oh my God, I did it, but what do I have next? Nothing can top this. That
feeling of being like, I've observed the peak. I don't know how to go beyond this.
Exactly.
And that is the thing about the ditch day footage, right? So Sammy films the ditch day. He creates this whole little story narrative. It's a lot of fun. It's like, it would be top 5 senior videos of, the year, right?
I mean, the whole ice cream in the mouth to pretend that everyone's getting pooped in their mouth by the gulls.
A lot of fun.
Yeah.
But he takes one of the bullies, like the tall, strapping Aryan gentleman, and he looks like a goddamn god. Again, he's 6'3", he's hitting these things, and he's doing the run, and it's the slow-mo.
It's St. Elmo's Fire.
Yeah, it's St. Elmo's Fire, and he's doing the run, and it's slow-mo, and it's at this low angle, and he looks...
It's golden hour, he's glistening.
It looks like Sammy straight up oiled him up beforehand. Very homoerotic. And then he shows it, and everyone's like, yeah, let's go, Chet. Woo, woo. And it's so good that Chet's girlfriend, who's like on the outs with him, doesn't like him, is like, you looked really good up there. You wanna go get a malt after this?
And you're way off. His name's Logan.
Logan. Of course it's Logan. Look at him. So he goes up and is like, Logan, ooh, you look good up there on the big screen. You want to go out and get a malt later? And Sammy's like Christian girlfriend, they like just broke up at prom, right? But after she sees the movie, she's like, oh, Sammy, you're kind of talented. Wait, where did Sammy go? He's not by the projector.
She's over waiting by the projector, and Sammy's like, deuces, I'm out. They can have the reel. I don't care,
Right? But then he goes, and then we have, again, probably the best scene of the movie. Best, 2 scenes of the movie.
Definitely the second scene, because we didn't talk about the first best scene of the movie.
Not with his Uncle Boris?
No, not that.
Oh, okay. Well, let's talk about this scene, then we'll round back to our favorite scenes, right? But it gets to this, one of the best scenes of the movie, where Sammy's like so dejected. His girlfriend just broke up with him. He had to show this ditch day movie, which he didn't really feel all that compelled to make because his parents are getting a divorce, and he's just kind of out of it. And then fucking Logan rolls in.
Well, but I mean, he's feeling defeated, and oh my God, they're not gonna like my ditch day movie. They already make fun of me and bully me. Everybody loves the movie.
Becomes king of fucking the graduating class.
He does.
But then he's sitting there, he's dejected, and Logan rolls in. He's like, dude, what the fuck was that?
Mm-hmm.
And Sam's like, what do you mean? And he's like, you made me look like a god up there. I've been nothing but a shit to you.
Yeah.
Like, what? Why did you do that? And Sam was like, I don't know. And he's like, no, you tell me. Tell me why you did that. And Sammy's like, I don't know, maybe I wanted you to be nice to me for 5 seconds. Or maybe, that's just how I shot you. You looked good on camera. You popped, so I made you the star.
That's when we get, round robin again. The camera doesn't lie. I shoot what I see, and the camera tells the truth.
Dude, you looked good on camera. You look like a movie star. Yeah. So you were the star of the movie. And this kid, to the point that you had, a very personal point of he's like, I'm not that guy up there. He's like, I'm the fastest kid in this county. I've worked really hard at that. I've achieved great things. I have awards. I'm the varsity da-da-da. I'm the captain of this. But you made me look better than I could ever be up there.
Yeah.
I can't be that guy. Everything after this is me trying to live up to an impossibility. Sammy has crushed this kid's confidence.
Crushed his soul. And he breaks down. He's crying. And it's a very philosophical thing. I love that flip.
Right? And I love it because it's this philosophical thing, right? Like, what did Sammy actually do? Oh, you made a video where I look super cool, dude. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
But he's like, you made me look
like a god.
Like a god. I'm a mortal man. It is like crushing his self-image by showing him something that he could never be. And it's like, but it's not just, it's something I can never be. You used me to show me that I can't be the best I can be. And it's like, it's such a well-acted scene. It's so good. The guy that played Logan, I think this is his first movie.
No, I think he's been in a couple other movies.
I know this. I know this is like pretty early for him.
I recognize him. I'm not sure where I recognize him from. His name's Sam Rechner.
Okay, Sam Rechner, great performance, by the way.
Oh yeah, he was also in a movie called Ruby's Choice. Oh, you were right. He only has 2 acting credits.
Again, great show. I'd love to see what this guy does next, honestly, because this is
absolutely.
so good, and he's only in like fucking 10 minutes of the whole screen time, 15 minutes maybe.
But you see him being this douchey jock bully to having a full existential crisis.
And it works.
And it works, and it also goes with, that whole kind of dread of graduating, and it's like, well, I was the hot shit here. What am I going to do next? That's the real world. The real world is next. What am I going to do? And apparently he is real.
Yeah.
He was, and I think he and Steven Spielberg got in contact around the time that he made Duel.
Okay.
So it was a thing where, they had talked, and I think he was like a police officer or something. So it was kind of like, see, you are doing good. But, it's just, I love this where he just, completely strips him apart, takes, this whole machismo and the varsity, takes it away from him.
The power of cinema made him feel something he could not feel himself.
Yes.
And they bond over this, and it's one of those things where it's like, okay, now this section of the John Hughes section of the movie now makes sense. Yeah. Now pays off in this really good and profound way. But god damn it, this section is still not good enough. Like,
well, then you have Chad, the little shrimpy racist.
See, okay, I switched their names.
There was a Chad.
There was a Chad
who comes in and he's pissed off at Sammy because Sammy,
made him look like a fool, but made Logan look like a god.
And it's like, it's true, Chad's the one getting rejected. He's stealing, drinks from other people.
People are being like shitty to him because he is a shitty person.
Yeah, and he's alone on the beach and he's ready to kick the shit out of Sammy. And that's when Logan steps up and beats the crap out of him and finally stands up for himself.
And that's the bonding moment, That's the thing where it's like, you know what, Sammy? You're all right. Mm-hmm. Don't ever tell anyone I said that. Have a good one.
And then they flip each other off.
Flip each other off like some fucking bros. And then Sammy's like, fuck, I gotta keep at this. Like, he realizes in that moment that, yeah, he saw like bad things through the lens. He was able to capture something that was able to affect somebody else so profoundly that he changed their view of themselves and also like their relationship with him. And it's like, that's him realizing the power of cinema in his heart. And, his parents get the divorce and it bounces to like a few years later.
I think it's like a year later. It's not a major jump.
It's like a year or two. Like, he basically makes peace with his mom, and he's like, I love you. I understand what you got to do. This whole secret we have, I get it. His dad has played the bad guy. He has to live in the bachelor pad in California. Yeah. But him and his dad kind of like they reconciled. He's like, Dad's like, I really wish you would do anything else with your life, but you got a fucking gift, all right? And
I believe that scene where, Sammy's having the anxiety attack and his dad brings him down. He's like, your mom used to have these. It's okay. Let me do this for you. He's parenting. He's calming him down. Apparently that was shot on the 1-year anniversary of his actual dad's passing.
Yeah.
So, it's like,
I forget, because his father was like 103?
Something. They lived a long life and they passed like just before the movie was shot. Yeah. And it was a thing where both of his parents were like, well, when are you going to make a movie about us? When are you going to make a movie about our family? And he finally got around to it, during the pandemic, writing, the treatment and everything. But I was just kind of like, that must have been so cathartic because, there was that 15-year disconnect between the two of them. Mm-hmm. So I could totally see where, instead of doing that, he rewrote it where it's like, no, I went to live with my dad.
He's trying to right the wrongs of his life.
Exactly. And it's like, I did the school thing for my dad, but then told him, I couldn't do this. And his dad was like, you know what? You kind of, extended yourself for me. Let me extend myself for you. Pursue your dreams. And here is your letter from CBS that you overglanced because you were having a panic attack.
And he goes to CBS, and the producer is like, I'm doing this thing called Hogan's Heroes. It's going to be great, kid. But you know what? We're going to get this done. And I see your letter here. You want to make moving pictures. You don't want to work in TV. Yeah. And Sam was like, well, yeah, I want to make movies. He was like, you know what, kid? I'm going to take a chance on you because I like you. but if you want to make movies, you got to meet this guy. He works across the hall. Greatest director to have ever lived. You want to meet him? Sam's like,
obviously.
Sure, yeah. And he goes across the hall, walks in, sits down in the office or whatever, and the guy's like, all right, kid, good luck. And then the secretary's there. He's like, he'll be in a minute. And then we get the pan around, and we realize.
I love the pan.
I'm literally getting goosebumps right now.
Yes.
Pans around, and we find out where he is. We see the poster for Stagecoach, The Searchers,
Grapes of Wrath,
The Quiet Man.
How Green Was My Valley.
Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, and it's like, he's about to meet John Ford.
Yeah.
Right? This is 1960-something, 65, something like that.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
And, again, John Ford canonized as, again, greatest director to ever lived, right? Mm-hmm. His competition is Hitchcock, Howard Hawks, maybe? Like, that's it? And it's like, okay, he's about to meet God, right? About to meet God.
But I love that they tied it back to Arizona when he was, a Boy Scout.
Mm-hmm.
And it's him and his troop sitting in there watching...
Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
Exactly. And everyone, there's talking because, he talked to a girl and, give us all the... And he's like, shut up. And, he moves away from them and he's sitting and he's just absorbing what's, coming through the screen. And then we have that moment.
When Sir David Lynch walks in playing John Ford in the greatest cameo appearance in any film ever.
I couldn't believe it.
He's so good in this. But yeah, I love how it's David Lynch playing John Ford, because he looks like pretty good. He looks kind of like a dead ringer for him, honestly, with the eye patch and the hat and everything.
And it was something cool where, David Lynch, Mr.
Americana, the darkness of Americana kind of guy.
Mr. Gordon Cole goes past your screen, pulling a very much Hitchcock kind of, cameo, walking through, and it's kind of, you have to do a double take, was that just David Lynch? And, he's so scruffy and worn down. Well, it was also, David Lynch that was like, hey, give me the costume. I'm going to wear this for a couple of weeks because I really want it to be...
Worn in,
because that's how John Ford was. He's like, I want to really look the part.
And we get the scene, and Spielberg has told this story, I think probably in every interview he's ever given.
Mm-hmm.
At least 300 of them.
Yeah.
And it's basically been the exact same the entire time. This is like a pretty real thing that actually happened. Steven Spielberg, he goes in, or Sammy goes in, and it's pretty much exactly what happens. John Ford is like, so you want to make pictures, kid? Or, sorry, so you want to make pictures, kid? Because
it's David Lynch.
David Lynch. And Sammy's like, well, yes, sir. And he's like, all right, well, what do you look right there? You see that painting? He's like, yeah, what do you see in that painting? Cowboys, the desert. He's like, no, where's the horizon? He's like, the what? Where's the fucking horizon? And he's like, at the bottom. All right, good. Now over there. He's like, where's the horizon? He's like, at the top. And he's like, there. If the horizon is at the bottom of the image, it's interesting. Mm-hmm. If it's at the top, it's interesting. If it's in the middle, it's fucking boring.
Yeah.
You get that? Then you might be able to make a good picture.
Then get the fuck out of my office.
Get the fuck out of my office. And Sammy's like, I love your movies, sir. And he's like, thank you, kid. Mm-hmm. Fuck off. And then, like, as Sammy leaves, he's so elated. He's like, I just got to meet John fucking Ford. I just got this advice. And, okay, best shot of the movie, right? He's walking down the back lot, and he's, like, so happy. He's like, I'm now entering the world of movies. I'm now going to turn into the butterfly that it'll be Steven Spielberg. Mm-hmm. And the camera...
It bumps.
It bumps and jerks, and like a leg of the tripod went out, and it pops down, and then puts the horizon at the bottom of the image.
Mm-hmm.
Makes for a better picture.
And that was improvised day of that scene.
The original ending was going to be Spielberg saying cut.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that doesn't work. But that shot works. And that's Steven Spielberg internalizing some advice he got 60 years previously.
Absolutely. And, more David Lynchian fun because you love David Lynch.
Love him.
It apparently took him 3 weeks to commit to the film. It was a thing where Spielberg was like, please do it. And it was actually Tony Kushner. Kushner. Yeah. She talked to her husband who, went over and talked to Laura Dern and was like, hey, Spielberg really wants him to make this cameo as John Ford. And Laura Dern was like, David, you got to commit. And because they're such good friends, he was like, okay, I'll do it. But I love that his stipulation, apart from letting him do this, on his own time in his own way, because he's David Lynch.
He got to use his own cigars, right?
He's got maybe, but one of his things that he needed for this to happen was that they had to have plenty of Cheetos at concessions, or not concessions, at
Crafties.
At Crafties.
Fucking David Lynch.
I was like, Cheetos. David Lynch is fucking awesome.
David Lynch, the master of Americana. And it is one of those things where I'm like, it is so good. It's such a well done scene, and it's like, that's part of the Spielberg legend, right? Mm-hmm. Like, again, that's probably the most quoted story of his like interview sections, but that's the Fablemans, right? And we glossed over like a lot of the movie just because for brevity's sake, but there are some great scenes you wanted to point out. All right?
Oh, yeah. I think I have to talk about my favorite scene. Obviously, when he meets John Ford, that's a favorite.
So good.
The reaction of Logan in the hallway where he's just moved by this piece. But my favorite scene has to be when he gets his first reel back from, crashing the train cars.
And he's looking.
He's in the closet, and he's using his hands as the screen, and you just see this movie playing out in his hands, because that's where he's created. He's hand holding the camera, and it's just I've created this thing and I'm holding it. Basically, I'm holding my future in my hands.
It's the thing where it's like, yeah, holding the future. He's also like, I'm a craftsman. I made this. Like my dad who makes computers, I have made a movie and I'm holding it in my hands.
But just to see it, in a child's hands, and just how excited he is. I mean, it honestly reminded me of my nephew Al. Because it's been a thing that I've been noticing recently when we hang out with them. He either likes to have his mom or dad take pictures of things that he's interested in. He loves, vehicles and transportation. And for my birthday, when we hung out with them, he saw this, vintage car Christmas ornament. Mm-hmm. And he had my cousin take, multiple pictures of it from different angles. And right away, he wanted the phone back. And he's just flipping and he's looking at the car in different angles. And I was kind of like, you don't see kids do that often.
Spielberg hits you right in the sentimentality.
Oh my God. I was just
does
like,
it.
That's where, it had been in my head. And then, seeing this in the movie, and it's like, can my nephew be that? Is this, a passion, a drive that might be, sparked?
Or he might just want to be a mechanic. You don't know.
Or he might want to be a photographer. You never know. But, it just kind of, takes you back to, being that age and, have these things that just kind of spark your attention, spark your love. For me, that was movies. It's just movies. It was that one day where it just kind of sparked, and it was like, this is my thing. I love movies. I can never go back. This is my passion.
It's the Spielberg touch, right? And the movie, I really do like the movie, honestly. I have my gripes with like the second half of the movie. Because, again, the first half, we have the scene where it's, the kid and it's all the schmaltz. We have him building his stuff. It's very fun. We have the drama.
Let alone when he's filming that scene for himself and you see the smoke billowing out of the train.
They make a Lionel train set look massive, right?
Yeah, and it's just like, oh my God, you're a child and you make me feel like, what is the train going to crash into? Oh my God, can we get that car off the tracks?
And it's the thing where the first half pitch is so high and so hard, yet it's really good.
Yeah.
The second half starts to de-escalate. The movie starts slowing down. It's weird. I feel like it is a little uneven. Mm-hmm. Just me. But did you feel the same way?
Yeah, it felt uneven. I think it needed to end the way that it ended. Because, originally, I was thinking it should be on a set, something...
Like his first day filming something. Like the Columbo pilot, I think, is like one of the first things he ever shot.
Yeah, something like that. But it's like, I think, him getting his blessing, his baptism from John Ford was kind of like, okay, that's a good way to go. And this is, it's kind of like Sammy finally caught a break. When you see him walking in between the sound stages, one of those iconic scenes of, the actor or the director.
In the back lot, and they're surrounded by their craft.
They're finally home.
That scene is very interesting, and like Spielberg's a very interesting kind of figure, right?
Yeah.
Because, that John Ford, his baptism into cinema, John Ford, I think he dies in like the late 60s, early 70s, something like that.
Yeah, not too sure when he passes.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where it feels like, oh, well, John Ford, this is him kind of passing the baton off to Spielberg as, say what you will about Spielberg, he is a quintessential American, like, populist director.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's no one that can touch him. People can bring up whoever, like, yeah, George Lucas made Star Wars. Spielberg made Indiana Jones, Jaws, E.T. Like the guy has like this huge catalog of movies that's just all work, that just all kind of just works for this huge populist audience. He is the popcorn guy.
And then I think, as we're wrapping this up, I think we need to talk about our kind of funny attachment to this movie.
Oh, yeah. So for anyone who wonders, we record in Whittier, California. We do it in
Undercity Comics. Uptown
Whittier. And they filmed where Benny goes and pawns off his camera sells his camera at the camera shop. Sammy
sells his camera, and Benny's there buying the camera that he had just made his war picture with.
And he's giving it to him as a gift. That entire sequence was shot about 100 yards from our front door.
Yeah, it was shot at Monty's camera shop. You get a glimpse of it in the movie, but that's the way that Monty's looks. Monty's looks like you're stepping through time. You're back in the 60s, the 70s.
It's one of those camera shops that probably has not had a remodel since 1974.
I remember the first time that we actually went to Monty's, and the window displays kind of reminded me of A Christmas Story, where there's like full displays of things happening. And as a photographer, I absolutely love it because they have the enlargers and they show the process of creating an image. And it's like, oh my God, you never see stuff like this. But to see it in this movie was just kind of breathtaking. But we were actually there that day that they shot the scene.
Yeah, we were walking through, getting lunch or something like that.
We were getting dinner.
Or dinner, yeah. And there was like the whole crew was out there. Like they were driving through the cars. I'm pretty sure.
We saw Benny's car.
Yeah, we saw Benny's car.
I have pictures of it. When this episode gets uploaded, it will be uploaded onto our Instagram. The behind the scenes pictures we were able to get.
But yeah, it was kind of wild. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm watching that scene. I'm like, I know there. I've been there.
We were there. And, it was this thing where, we're watching them as they film. They're in the cars and they're rolling down the street. And Seth Rogen was there when we were there and we had no idea.
Yeah.
But it was this thing where, you have people that are in period clothing and they were just hanging out. And we went up to them and we're like, hey, what's shooting? Because it's Whittier. So obviously it could be anything from a commercial to a movie. And someone goes, oh yeah, it's this, this biopic about Steven Spielberg. And we're like, oh, okay, cool. And we're thinking maybe it's like a TV movie.
Yeah, and then, maybe it's like the Spielberg documentary. Maybe it's a recreation of something.
Yeah, and then, the Fablemans comes out and we're like, holy shit, we were there. We were standing right there.
It is a really fun little like tie to the movie. But...
Yeah, because where we record, we're part of like the historic district of Whittier. So a lot of movies have been filmed in the neighborhoods around here, but just to be able to kind of stumble into it as it's happening and then realize, oh no, it was this Oscar award, nominated movie.
And let's get to that, honestly.
Yeah.
Movies nominated for 7 Oscars, win 0.
Yeah.
Everything Everywhere All at Once gets like 8, 9, I think. All Quiet on the Western Front gets like
the 2 of 4, them really kind of swept.
Huge sweeper, right? So this movie is nominated for Best Picture and Best Director and
supporting.
It's nominated for a lot of things. I'm just curious. Do you think it should have gotten any? Seeing the movie, you're just like, this is where I would really like this to be in it, because this was a front runner for the Oscars for a long time.
Yeah,
then Everything Everywhere All at Once kind of just was a steam engine that just kept on building and building and building.
Yeah, for me, I wanted at least score because it was scored by John Williams.
It's their last score together.
Yeah, but even in John Williams, he's like, yeah, this is my last score with him, or, all in all. But he's like, when Steven Spielberg calls you, you don't really say no. So, the odds of us getting another John Williams score are very high. So I was kind of hoping that he was going to take it since this was kind of his, I might be retiring after this. But No, I think, everyone that won the awards this past Academy, season, I think it, went to the right people. I mean, it's a great movie, but...
It's not even top 5 Spielberg.
No.
It's top 10?
I'll go with top 10. But I mean, again, I have to look at the list of the Steven Spielberg movies because there are so many Spielberg movies.
I mean, I can rattle off like 5 or 6 off the top of my head. I liked more than this. I mean, the box office also didn't reflect very well in the movie. Mm-hmm. It was a $40 million budget. It was a 45 box office. So It was a soft flop.
Yeah.
It made back its money, didn't make enough to be a hit.
Yeah.
And it's a thing where the movie should get a little bit more love, but it is a very weird thing for Spielberg to make. Because I think he originally wanted to make this in like 99.
Yeah.
And then he just decided against it, honestly, because he felt it was... he did not want his parents to see what he thought of them and their like marriage and his place in it at that time.
Yeah.
And then him making it now, it's like, okay, he's a little bit more free to kind of express his own feelings, but it's like, this is such a personal story to him that he is trying to make it a little bit easier to access. He's calling it the Fablemans, not the Spielberg, so it works out, but it's, I don't know, I really felt like this was a really good movie. It was not a great movie.
And, the words spiel and fable are both synonyms for story. So, it's kind of like, it's this...
I like how you just go off on that tangent real quick.
Oh, I had to. It was in my notes. I was waiting to drop that. I was like, when can I drop it in there?
Well,
but, this movie was, again, thought of in the late 90s. He wrote it in 2020. And I think, it was kind of like the rest of the world where, 2020 was that time where we kind of, took time to reflect and to, think things out and try new things. And I think it was kind of one of those times where I was just like, I've had this idea. Now I have the time. Let me see, how far I'm willing to soul search and, create this. So I think it came at the right time. I loved kind of, getting a glimpse behind the camera into seeing who, the man is when it was really the boy.
Yeah.
And just seeing, his journey to now and, the possibilities of the future, for Steven Spielberg and his films.
And tying it into the theme of the month, right?
Yes.
Is this a movie about movies? I think it's a movie about loving cinema, even if it hurts you, kind of thing, right? Because he loves making movies. It feels like he is kind of destined to make movies, He's Steven Spielberg.
He is.
Of course he's going to make a movie.
And I mean, we have his mom early in the film saying, movies are dreams and they're fantasies, and they are. But at the same time, he sees that movies are the truth. And even if they're fictional characters, it's a fantastical world, movies teach us things.
And it's a very lovely movie.
It is.
It's just, goddamn, when Jesus Girl shows up, it is a different film. The tone shifts completely.
That's something else.
It's something else. Again, the whole third section of the movie, it left turn, guys. You took a left turn. I wasn't there for it. I got thrown. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But overall, I really enjoyed the movie. I give it 2 strong thumbs up. I hope they screen it again. I'd like to see it on a bigger screen and kind of really
experience it.
Get that cinematic experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I give it a strong like thumb up on it.
That second thumb's kind of shaky.
I think on Letterboxd I gave this like a 3.5 out of 5. Yeah. It's slightly above average. Like there's stuff here. I like it.
I'd probably go with the same rating too.
It's one of those movies that would probably like really, really grow on you after a while. Or if you're like 18, 19 and you love making movies and you really like want to kind of like bite into, well, how do other guys experience like making movies and things like that? This is probably like right there for you, right up your alley.
It's it's an inspirational movie. I mean, I've got my camera with me today. I haven't touched this camera in a couple of years. Had a roll of film, popped it in, and then I'm going to see what I can shoot today.
I love it. Spielberg, you have worked your magic again with the power of cinema. Why has God cursed me with the Kino powers?
So much Kino, so much.
Again, I was waiting for the moment where Sammy was going to be in the rain and be like, why have you cursed me with the power of cinema? But yeah.
Tetsuo!
Kaneda! But yeah, so that's the Fablemans, everybody. Really liked it. But what are we watching next week?
Next week, we're watching a movie that is brand new to Dean, but is very near and dear to my heart. I think it's the only movie that I've seen 5-6 times in a theater. We're watching The Artist.
Oh, The Artist. This is a movie that swept its Oscar run?
It did. It completely swept. And it's also our first silent film on the podcast.
Oh man, I have so many silent movies I want you to watch. I'm so mad it's going to be one made in like 2010.
Well, we're going to start with mine first, but if you want to listen to us on a different platform than you currently are, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. You
can go to our YouTube channel, The Film Vault. That is The Film Vault on YouTube. Eventually, when Dean remembers to, he will upload slideshow versions of this podcast so you can listen to it on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, and you can also follow us on our social media at
The Film Club Podcast on Instagram, where we post daily stories, upcoming episodes, and our random adventures we go on.
And with that, lights, camera,